Hello, this is Ori with HWB Fencing. There's actually a few different variations and different types of fencing and contracting. Whenever you're dealing with residential fence, let's talk about chain link for a little bit. If you're going to deal with residential fence, you're usually dealing with the type of wiring that deals with 11 to 12 gauge, which is basically just the appearance. It's not going to hold in a lot. You can run through it. If you run through it with a machine, obviously it's going to go through. It might hold particular animals. It's basically for looks and a sense of stability or whatever for security, because all fencing has to deal with this security level. Now, whenever you're doing higher commercial grade type of fencing, you'd want to deal with more like 9 gauge wiring, and you want to move your posts from a regular 15 gauge or 17 gauge out to almost SVT 40, which is a real thick type of piping, which is for more like security facilities. Whenever you're trying to do prisons or whatever, you want to use SVT 40, and it's a lot of it's a schedule 40. It's a real thick type of post, so you can't really just drive into it and bend it. And then your wiring fabric, you would like to use 9 gauge. There's different type of gauging in type of your wiring, which is for thickness. Of course, it's more cost. There is a cost variation in the type of wiring that you use. So the objective is thicker wiring for commercial, if it's the requirement. Now, we got black vinyl coated fencing for like tennis courts and stuff like that. Then with your chain link fencing, you even got bob wires on top. You can run 3-strand bob wire on the top of your fencing, and what that basically allows it to do is it keeps people in or out, whatever variation that you want to do. Because if you're keeping something in, the fabric goes in. Now, that's more in the installation process. But in the sales aspect of everything, you would actually want to understand that depends on what's required. If you're just holding in a German Shepherd or something, there'd be nothing wrong with 11 gauge, and then you just run a tension line at the bottom. That's not an issue. But 11 gauge would be typically good for residential, and then probably you can get 15 gauge post and a line post. It should be relatively no problem. Excuse me, it's been a long time. So I can enclose everything. Now, most of the time you can go 3 feet into the ground, or you can go 2 feet into the ground. Particularly depends on what the customer is willing to pay for or what they want. A lot of it is just cost efficiency. If a client doesn't want to pay for what it takes to put 3 feet into the ground, then obviously you'll do 2 foot. If the client doesn't want to pay the extra amount for, the higher fabric, obviously you're just going to give them the lesser fabric. We can go back down to 11, 12 gauge. Now, if it's required, like let's say if you're in a commercial facility, obviously you're going to want to give the client the best gauging that they're required for their specific needs. Now, with the bob wire threading, that's for more like security facilities. You can run 12-foot posts with 12 cross-bred intersections, and that works out too. And then you'd obviously, wrap the bars and everything. But there's many different forms of fencing in different aspects. If you were to sell a fence, biggest thing I would question is what type of fence are you looking for? What's the gauging in the wiring? Not necessarily in that, just what is your fence for? What are you looking to get done? When is